chatty, sorry. Good morning, everyone. I welcome you to the very first, I think we're the very first meeting of all the meetings right now as far as council goes, but to the January 5th, 2023 Public Works Committee meeting. And we have our first on the agenda is a call to order, and I see, and also roll call, and I see that we have Council Member Schneider present and Council Member Althazer and myself, Council Member Swarthout. See, and our first ask is to approve the minutes from the December 8th, 2022 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. All right. All in favor, just say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. All right. That we got that one off the board. So minutes approved for the December 8th, 2022 meeting. And next we have up Alyssa Jones Woods, and she'll be talking about the Soul Smart program proposal. Good morning, Alyssa.
Good morning and Happy New Year. I'm going to briefly go over the Soul Smart program because I realize we have a very packed agenda today. The action requested related to this item is for you all to recommend City Council authorize the mayor to sign a solar statement to begin the process of Soul Smart accreditation. Soul Smart is a national technical assistance and designation program designed to recognize local jurisdictions for encouraging solar energy growth and addressing barriers to solar energy. It was established in 2016 under the U.S. Department of Energy. I'm asking for us to proceed with Soul Smart. One, because it's in line with City Council strategic priorities, specifically streamlining permitting for green projects. And it's a distinct action within the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan as well, Action B5.5 to do Soul Smart. Soul Smart Soul Smart helps us reduce the solar soft costs for residents who want to do simple solar on their home, as well as businesses. Soft costs, so that's permitting, waiting, going back and forth, can account for close to 66% of the total cost for putting in solar photovoltaic systems. Soul Smart estimates that this soft cost is normally about $2,500 per system, and that if we had a particularly onerous permitting process, that it could add an additional $700. So the process for this is to really try to eliminate those solar soft costs to make things really transparent and easy for people to understand. Through Soul Smart, we have access to technical assistance through the Department of Energy and their consultants absolutely for free to the city. There's no cost to us. We just need to commit staff time to work with them and to show a commitment to achieving designation, which is essentially this letter. This letter, this solar statement, which was included in the packet, is the thing that opens up our ability to use the technical assistance. I will probably have biweekly or monthly meetings with these technical assistance providers to help us through this process. And some of the points in Soul Smart will actually be completely done by them, making it really easy. Soul Smart has 3 designation levels: bronze, silver, and gold. Obviously, bronze is the least amazing. Gold is the most awesome. Due to staff capacity, we're shooting for Soul Smart Silver this year to really set us up for a future goal to get Soul Smart Gold. There are 8 other communities in Washington state that have been designated under Soul Smart. Bainbridge Island, Edmonds, Bellevue, and Langley all have bronze. King County has silver, and Olympia, Issaquah, and Mercer Island have gold. Thurston County is also working this year to get Soul Smart accreditation. Both myself and the staff member at Thurston County went through the Soul Smart process in South Florida many years ago, so we're familiar with the process and feel like we can get a pretty good score for both jurisdictions pretty easily. The process itself is we go to the website, we figure out about Soul Smart, we read the program guide, which was included in the packet. I've already had my consultation call with the technical advisors, and the next step is to submit that written commitment, that solar statement. From there, that opens up the technical assistance that we can get, where we actually go and achieve the points. We submit the application, and then we get successful designation and get to publicize it. They give us this nice glass plaque that we can put up in the permitting department that shows and signals to our community that we have gone through the steps to reduce the barriers to doing solar. So for each level, the bronze, silver, and gold, there are prerequisites and then a point requirement. For bronze, we have to do the solar statement, that letter that needs to be signed by the mayor. We have to post an online checklist detailing the required permit submittals, which we actually already have on our website. And we review the zoning requirements and identify restrictions that unintentionally or intentionally prohibit solar PV development. That is a step that's the most onerous, and that's what the technical advisors will do for us. So review all of our code and identify any areas that we might be accidentally blocking solar where we don't mean to. They'll compile a memo. For bronze, we also need to achieve 20 points in permitting and inspection, 20 points in planning and zoning, and 20 points in all the other sections combined. For silver, we need to meet those earlier bronze prerequisites. We need to provide training for permitting and inspection staff, and that can just be one training. It's a really light lift here. We need to post an online document, basically a zoning determination letter that says, okay, those obstacles that we identified in our code, we won't interpret them that way. For gold, we would have to go through an amendment to those ordinances or to that code to fix that. But we can get by with silver by just saying, we'll interpret it as if that's not a barrier. For silver, we would also need 20 points in permitting and inspection, planning and zoning, and all the other sections, and an additional 40 points to get to 100 total points. Some of the silver points that I'm looking for us to do is posting those inspection requirements online, giving that memo of the zoning review findings to Planning Commission, doing a feasibility analysis for solar PV on local government facilities and land, posting online resources about residential and solar PV financing options and incentives, and supporting a community-wide group purchase program, which Olympia Community Solar already puts together. It's really easy for us to share. For future goals, unless you all decide otherwise, we would need to, for gold, we would need to meet this silver and bronze. We would need to codify the zoning ordinance that eliminates those barriers. And we would need to commit to a 3 business day turnaround time for permit review for small rooftop solar. We would also need to add an additional 100 points, but for the silver, the points that I've marked out that I want to work on achieving through the silver accreditation is like 175. So when we want to do gold, we just need to be able to commit to like 25 more points, the 3-day turnaround time, and a code amendment essentially. And I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you. All right, Michael.
Yeah, my question is about the 3-day thing. That out of all of these, that sort of seems like maybe the most onerous, because it seems like it's the least in control for us. Like when I did solar at our house, and I'm not sure if our setup would qualify as a small rooftop solar. I don't know if it's small or medium, but we have 36 panels on the roof. And when we did that, I think it took about 35 or 40 days to get the permit reviewed. And so it was set up and could have been getting power going, but it took that long in order to get someone to actually sign off on it. So we weren't generating for 30 or so days. And I think Councilmember Dahlhoff had a similar experience with her setup. The other thing, though, that seems to be a challenge. So my question is, if I recall, isn't it L&I that actually does that as opposed to the city looking at the electrical to make sure that that's correct? So how do we, if that is the case, how do we work with the state to make sure that they're able to actually respond quickly enough?
My understanding is that we review residential solar and that L&I does the commercial. But they still look at the electrical. So we would need to work with them, and it would be worth having a conversation with Olympia of how they achieved, or a little loophole of this that I don't love is also that we put an online statement saying that it's 3-day turnaround time. They aren't auditing us to see that it's actually taking 3 days, or perhaps it's 3 days for our process, and L&I could take more, unfortunately. I'll check with Olympia and see how they approached that. Definitely as part of the process.
Yeah, the other issue that's outside of our control too is just like we had our panels installed. Leanna also had a similar experience, and then it took, I think, PSE about a month to also come out and actually connect the wire to the thing and to install the correct kind of meter that can go backwards and be digital as opposed to the physical meter that kind of works like a turnstile. And that's obviously outside the ratings for this, but between those two things, that was 2 months of where we had panels on the roof in the peak of summer where we could have generated, 32 kilowatts of good electricity, clean electricity that was just not being utilized. So I wonder if also there's conversations that could be had with PSE about, what are better ways to where this could be facilitated in a quicker fashion. But that was really more a comment than a statement, admittedly. But my final question though is whether the school district is also incorporated in some of these gold rankings, because I know weren't they looking at doing solar on Peter G and a couple other of the elementary schools, or if that's a separate jurisdictional thing that they would have to examine and go through the process themselves.
My internet became unstable while you were asking that question. Would you mind
Oh,
repeating
okay.
it, please?
Sure. My question was just with the school district, would they have to go through their own process to get certified? Because they were looking at doing solar on a few school buildings. The last time we had a joint meeting with them, they mentioned that.
I think that it would be us, because we're the permitting agency, as well as LNI,
Okay.
that they wouldn't need to go through SolSmart because they're not imposing any barriers
Right,
besides
okay.
their own ability to do it themselves.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
My questions are, it's funny, so I had solar installed on Tuesday. And so that's why I'm wondering, like, the connection, is it, so SolSmart, do they work with the vendors, or where's the connection with the people who are actually doing the work, providing the solar panels, and then SolSmart, where do they fit in?
Yes. So one of the things that we'll do through the SolSmart process is put together a solar landing page, and that will be kind of a one-stop shop for residents to find information about, okay, where are the installers? What financial incentives exist? What kind of financing can I get? What are my protections as a consumer for solar considering HOAs? They'll get this information, and from there they can go, and if they want to work with Olympia Community Solar for their already competitively solicited vendors, or if they want to select another vendor off the list, they can do that. We will be trying to eliminate those barriers that make it hard for people to do that business in the city, and hard for people to find those businesses to do the work themselves.
That's funny. So as we were speaking, I think I just got a phone call from the LNI, because when I talked to the person yesterday, they were setting up just like what Michael was talking about, the LNI comes out and then PSC. So LNI, she said, they have to inspect the electrical piece within 72 hours. So anyway, I think I just missed his call. So they're going to come out and check the electrical piece, but I'm wondering about the PSC part. So too, because it'll be interesting to see how quickly they come out to install the meter part of it. So yeah, so I appreciate his question and making sure that the timeline fits for people as far as, so it goes smoothly, so they don't have to wait for a long time. But it's probably because people are really starting to install as well too, that more people are stepping up and doing this. So anyway, that was my comment. I just want to let you know the LNI piece of it. So, but thank you for this. This is going to be exciting. This is really, I think, a good fit for us. Charlie, do you have any questions? Did you want to ask anything about it? Okay, you're next, Charlie. You get it. We're one by one, we're doing this. So, all right. Okay, so with that, we do have a recommended action that we recommend the City Council authorize the mayor to sign a solar statement to begin the process of seeking SolSmart accreditation. Do I have a motion or agree to the action? Do we have to do a motion?
So
A motion to approve? Okay. Second from,
I'll second that.
okay, thank you, Charlie. All right, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you for that. So
Thank you.
super, thanks for your work, Alyssa. All right, now moving on to, we have a grant agreement with the Department of Ecology for the SMAP Stormwater Basin Planning, and we have Dan Smith presenting.
Good morning, Council. Actually, this is going to be presented by Meredith.
Okay.
She is, as you know, managing many of these ecology grants that we have for relate to the stormwater utility. So I'm just going to turn this over to Meredith for this one and the next two items actually as well related to the golf course. So take it away, Meredith.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. As Alyssa had mentioned, I know we've got a packed schedule, so I might go a little bit quicker through some of these than normal. Please stop me at any time if you have any questions. I'm here today to first talk about the SMAP Basin Planning Grant Agreement. SMAP is something that I brought to you all, I think, back in December now, although it's been a while. So we're doing kind of a quick overview of the project, the updates that have happened since, and then moving from there. So a little bit of background, because we love our acronyms in the water resources world. SMAP stands for Stormwater Management Action Planning. The idea being that we're really taking a watershed by watershed planning process in order to help improve stormwater management and habitat in these areas. This is something that was kind of dictated to us by the Department of Ecology as part of our permit. And they have a very specific process that we need to go through in order to meet all of these requirements. We have to do a receiving water assessment, then a receiving water prioritization, and a SMAP creation. The first two steps, Dave Congeezer and the other water resources staff took care of in-house. The last step we were getting help with from Herrera. So we had brought the service provider agreement with Herrera back in December for this project. We're working through kind of these 6 big steps to put together a plan for 3 of the different subbasins in Tumwater. What we're focusing on right now is the Trosper Lake subbasin. This is our first priority and something that we have a permit deadline associated with. So we need to have our completed SMAP by March 31st of this year. So this is where we're focusing right now. Only about a month or so since I was here last, we've been really working on focusing what our priorities are in the subbasin. So some of those priorities are including developing an enhanced street sweeping plan, developing and implementing a ditch maintenance program. We're also going to be launching our business source control program that has to start in 2023, really focusing on business within the subbasin, especially in the Beehive industrial area. We're also planning to develop a stormwater monitoring program, something that will really give us a better idea of the water quality we have in our streams over time. Since we're getting more snapshots in time right now, we want a better system set up so that we're able to see trends, see if all the actions we're taking are actually working, and establishing baselines to help us out. So as I had mentioned, we're completing 3 of these SMAPs, the Trosper Lake subbasin one being the first. We'll then be working on the other 2 in the West Mountain subbasin and the Fish Pond Creek subbasin over the next year or so. We did receive a grant from the Department of Ecology to help us fund this work. So about 75% of our total cost is coming from the grant agreement that I'm here today to ask you all to move forward to the next step. That grant agreement runs through January 31st of 2025, even though we anticipate finishing the work a little bit earlier. The City of Tumwater's stormwater utility is helping to cover the other 25% needed for this project. And I know that was a whirlwind, but with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Meredith. Do we have questions for Meredith? I was curious, is this, so this will be the first one, the Trosper Lake one. Will the grant cover all 3 then? Are we getting the ability to cover all 3 of those projects under the one grant?
Yes, correct. So all 3 will be completed under the same grant.
Perfect. All right. Very good. So, did anybody else have any questions? Oh, this is pretty simple here. Let's see. I'm trying to get back to my agenda. Sorry, this is not going back. So our recommended action then that we have, I'm trying to read the recommended. You want to go ahead and read that for us?
Yes. Now I've got to pull it back. Staff request Public Works Committee recommend the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to sign the grant agreement with the Department of Ecology for the SMAP Stormwater Basin Planning.
Okay, all right. Do we have like to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, we have a second from
I will
Councilmember.
second that.
All right, okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Okay. So thank you so much for that one. We'll get that one moving ahead. And thanks for your work on this, Meredith. So appreciate seeing you again. And you're doing the next one, right?
I think so. If it's the golf course parking lot stormwater retrofit, then yes, that is also me.
Yeah, that's gonna be exciting. Okay, take it away.
Okay, so in the sake of efficiency, this is a 2-for-1. Staff actually has 2 requests here related to the same project. So we're looking to move forward a grant agreement with the Department of Ecology for this, as well as a service provider agreement with Skillings to help us with this work. So a little bit of background on this project. The golf course received Salmon Safe certification back in 2019. Salmon Safe is kind of a standard set forth that really shows that institutions are taking as many steps as possible to make their organizations salmon safe and friendly for salmon. Part of this certification came with a couple of requirements, including providing stormwater treatment for the parking lot. Some of the other requirements we've already completed for this are completing a full water use study, working on conserving water, creating an integrated pest management plan to try and reduce the amount of fertilizer and pesticides used on the golf course, as well as some habitat related work along the corridor, since we do have the Deschutes River, which runs right through it. So this is one of the next steps that we are planning on taking for this project. And it aligned really well as the golf course parking lot is planning to be resurfaced in the summer of 2023. So we're able to get all of these things aligned at the same time. That makes our job a little bit easier on this end. So currently, there is no stormwater treatment provided for the golf course before it drains into the Deschutes River. We have about two basins that make up the parking lot, which pretty much means that the parking lot flows to 2 different areas. The first subbasin, the northern one, is the biggest, about 2.23 acres, and it discharges directly into the Deschutes River untreated. The second one, which covers just the very bottom of the parking lot to the south, ends up discharging into this wetland area, which will hang out for a little bit before discharging further up in the Deschutes River. So what we're planning on doing is providing a bioretention facility. The goal here is to capture all of that stormwater that's currently coming off the golf course parking lot to provide treatment before it then discharges into the Deschutes River. The benefits of this is that the facility would help remove suspended solids like dirt and particles like that, copper, which can come from brake pads depending on the year of the car, total phosphorus, zinc, and one of the big ones right now as we're learning more about stormwater and the impacts it has on salmon is 6-PPDQ. This is something that is coming out of the University of Washington's research facilities, showing that tire particle wear is actually kind of mixing with stormwater and creating a pretty toxic cocktail of ingredients for coho salmon specifically. They end up having acute mortality syndrome. We know, since we're working with a number of our partners in this area, that coho salmon are a high priority for the Deschutes River and a stock that is declining. So being able to treat all of that runoff from an area that does have a number of cars driving through is a really big plus for this project. Overall, we've got some funding from the Department of Ecology. About 46.4% of the total project costs will be covered by this Department of Ecology grant. The other will be coming from the City of Tumwater's Parks and Facilities Capital Facilities budget. So Parks Department has set aside money for resurfacing and the stormwater needs for the parking lot, so they're covering the rest. So one thing that we're bringing forward today is the grant agreement with the Department of Ecology. The other is for the design and permitting work that Skillings Inc. would be providing. And that service provider agreement is for about $84,000 with them to complete that work. We're on a pretty quick timeline as we are trying to get all of this done to match up with the repaving efforts planned for summer of 2023. So we're looking forward to moving forward with that. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you all have.
Okay, do we have questions for Meredith? Actually, I do. So we'll be doing the golf course parking lot, but what about the Valley parking lot? I know that's a private. Are they in charge of their own parking lot? Are they factored into this at all? Or are they interested in participating? How does this work with them?
So this project is specifically scoped for the golf course's parking lot. I'm not entirely sure what the Valley parking lot's ownership situation is. I do know that part of the Water Resources Department's kind of goals and something they help out with is technical assistance. So I know if the Valley was interested at any point in providing a retrofit for their parking lot, that Tumwater would be more than happy to help out. We are doing a lot of work on stormwater and flooding related things as part of the Lower Deschutes River flood reduction study. So we are taking a look at that, and there might be opportunities in the future as we identify areas that might be good for retrofits, for storing water, for all of these things to take a more comprehensive look at the entire kind of Lower Deschutes River through there, and there might be good opportunities to partner moving forward. But right now, the specific scope is just for the golf course's parking lot.
Okay, Michael?
Are we gonna lose some parking spots as a result of this? It's already just really tight. Like that parking lot, people usually have to go park in that gravel area behind the valley anyway at the peak times during the
Mhm.
summer.
So the conceptual designs we have for the project right now do not lose any parking spots. So we're really trying to work in about a 5,000 square foot area, a little bit north of the parking lot, right between the parking lot and the Deschutes River is where we're scoped right now. So our goal, and something that's really a priority I know for the Parks Department, is not losing any spaces, to making sure that we're able to keep the same capacity in that
Yeah.
area.
That's great. Thanks.
Thank you. I just thinking again about the valley, then is there any requirements for, this is probably a conversation off topic or off, but just curious, do they have any requirements as far as treating their stormwater? Do commercial units have to do that? It's probably a Dan question too. Are they required to?
I would imagine that they were put in kind of before the requirements. If they were upgrading their parking lot in any way, they would likely have to, like I believe the golf course and their resurfacing triggered a requirement that they now have to provide stormwater treatment. I think if it'd be a similar situation, but Dan, if you know more, please feel free to jump in.
Yep, nope, you nailed it. Pretty much there is no retrofit requirements currently from the state, or the city, just unilaterally upgrade stormwater until they're coming in for some kind of improvements that would trigger that manual for those improvements. Yeah, I mean, anybody redevelops, they'll have to redevelop the current standards for stormwater. As you know, stormwater does not vest, and so, if you have a functional system, you need to upgrade it to make sure you're providing treatment as per our current standards. So.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate that. All right. Charlie, do you have any questions that you'd like to? Okay. All right. You're down there a lot along the banks. So, all right. So we have our recommended action is the staff request Public Works Committee recommend the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to sign the grant agreement with the Department of Ecology for the golf course parking lot stormwater retrofit design. And this may probably just have to recommend. So I don't know if we have to do we just agree that we recommend and say yes to move it forward?
I think we still do a
Do
motion.
a motion?
If we're going to recommend, then we do a motion. I don't think we need
Okay.
to do a motion if we don't make a recommendation.
Okay,
But-
all right. So do I?
Again, I'll
Okay.
move to that we recommend approval.
And I'll second
Okay,
that.
thank you, Mike. All right, thank you, Charlie. All right, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, Meredith. That's been approved, and thank you so much for your presentation. It's gonna be exciting to see that the parking lot finally get a chance to have a new surface.
Yes, and we actually had a second recommendation to also
Okay.
move forward the service provider agreement.
Thank you, Meredith.
Okay. All right.
Can you read that one, Meredith? Do you have that one available?
I'm happy to read it. Staff request Public Works Committee recommend the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to sign the service provider agreement with Skillings Inc. for the golf course parking lot stormwater retrofit design.
Okay, do I have a motion to
So
approve?
moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that has been approved as well. Thank you so much, Meredith. Thank
you
you
all.
for the reminder on that. So speaking of retrofits, our next agenda item is that will be checked any? Is that number 5 or we're on number 6 now? Is that okay? All right, thank you. All right. So do we have Chuck here to present?
Nope.
Sorry,
So
looking-
Meredith actually took care of, so that was the Skillings, that was the two.
That was the
amendments
second one? Okay.
Parking lot
Got it.
was
Okay,
for the
sorry.
golf course.
Sorry.
And as that's really a Parks Department, we are assisting with that one. So you guys covered that one. We're good. Up next,
Okay.
I believe is the Greer Environmental Consulting Amendment Agreement. I'm going to share my
Okay.
screen here and give a slight presentation. Hopefully you can all see that now effectively. So, basically, how many of you are raising your hands can tell me if you had a question based on the ask in the staff report and what the amendment was actually showing. As you know, back in December and late November, we had a number of amendments coming through. So I apologize for the incorrect amendment being attached to the staff report in there. And we also had an error in the staff report where we were requesting $42,000 in change in the amendment. But really what we're asking for, and hopefully this works and you can see down here, we're asking for $21,620 as part of the amendment change. And so I'll go over that in a moment here. But basically, this is an amendment that we're requesting a change for Greer Environmental Consulting. We've had some project changes over the last year since we've signed the agreement with Meredith. And added a couple of additional, added one project and added additional features for another. And so the new project, which you heard from Grant Gilmore back in September, related to the Percival Creek culvert across Percival Creek at Somerset Hill Drive, right here, where we have a bank that's being undermined by erosion due to the undersized culvert and the high velocity flows that are flowing through there. Meredith, as you know, is working very successfully on a culvert replacement project along Sap Road. And so this project was a good fit for her to help us move forward, seek funding for, do permitting, and continue to work on. And so we've added that contract or that project to her contract. The project management cost of that is $42,095. In addition, another project you saw late last year, Meredith had presented on, was the Deschutes River Flood Reduction and Erosion Study. This is taking place at the former brewery properties to determine, the factors that cause flooding down there and what steps, the city may be able to take or partner with other organizations and agencies in our area to reduce that flooding. And so looking at that project, there was some additional stakeholder efforts that Ecology had requested. The grant actually grew from when we were originally negotiating the scope with Greer Environmental and Consulting. And so we added basically just a couple of tasks under that, which amounts to about $4,000 in project management additions. Lastly, a change that we're unfortunate about, the East Linwood Basin stormwater retrofit, which we presented on a variety of various options last year, to help provide some additional treatment in the East Linwood area prior to its discharge in the Deschutes River, kind of around the old Tumwater Station number 2, the fire station number 2 over there off of Linwood. There was some stormwater retrofits that we were examining. However, we weren't able to reach agreement with the property owner to acquire property that would be needed for the selected technologies, the selected best management practice of stormwater treatment. We needed that to really move that project forward. The property owner wasn't willing to sell his property, and so therefore, there's really nothing more we could do with that grant. The other elements that we evaluated were really just not cost effective at all for the amount of stormwater treatment that you would be able to get. So we continue to look at additional options, including downstream treatment. Meredith is also continuing to pursue that conversation with other local agencies and regional agencies, looking at a larger potential flood management grant for the entire watershed, which could include some opportunities for us. So while we had to give back some of the money to Department of Ecology for this East Linwood Basin retrofit project, there still are some opportunities that we're taking a look at. So all hope is not lost necessarily on that one, but that one is resulting in a reduction to her contract fees of about $24,470 since she's no longer going to be pursuing that work or oversight of construction of those solutions identified in there. So this amounts to a revised contract cost of $305,970, which is an additional $21,620. So amendment number 2 is requesting that the Public Works Committee recommend City Council authorize and approve and authorize the mayor to sign the service provider agreement with Greer Environmental Consulting, amendment number 2, for project management services in an amount not to exceed $21,620. With that, I'll open up to any questions you might have.
Oh, thank you, Dan, for the explanation. There's so many amendments. You're right. We were trying to, it was a hurry to the end of the year. Do we have any questions for Dan? Yeah, I can't see anybody. So do we have, so then I'll ask, do we have a motion to approve the recommended action?
This is Michael. So moved.
Okay,
Second.
okay. All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right, Dan, thank you so much for that explanation and the updated information. So
Welcome. Thank you.
that has been approved.
Okay.
All right. Okay, and last but not least, just a quick update, right? No, it's okay. We're here.
Just a quick update here. We certainly have a good amount of time to be able to talk about this. This really, given some recent issues that have come up in the area, just wanted to kind of touch base with you and go over kind of a water supply capacity update. This is kind of a continuation of the conversation from the water system, comprehensive water system management plan that we put together back in 2021. I think we finally adopted it. But basically, we go through a planning exercise every, 6 to 10 years to determine, what does the city's water supply outlook look like, both from a production standpoint and a capacity standpoint in terms of delivery and getting that water out to our customers. It starts and this could be just a series of images and graphs that I'll just talk from. And so please feel free to stop me as I'm talking with any questions that might come up for you. So we start really with the ERUs, the water system equivalent residential units. This means if we were to develop, how many housing units can we develop? How many comparable industrial or commercial facilities, can be developed, as well. And this graphic here shows you basically what our entire water right portfolio looks like on the graphic on the left. The orange bar represents, the in-use allocated, the water customers that we currently have, about 22,756 housing units or equivalent residential units. So that also includes commercial customers, industrial customers that are, if we have a commercial customer that uses, a number of units, basically we express that how many units they use in terms of equivalent residential units. And so we can all compare similarly. The next couple of bars you see there, this low bar here represents 170 units. Those were requested in 2020. The next bar, you see 1163. Those were 2021 requests. And then in 2022, we had 274 ERUs requested. And we track that because that's what comes in as a request, and so we then reserve those water rights for those developments or for those projects. We have to track this because we have a ceiling of the amount of water we can provide out there, for development and within our community. And we don't want to hit that ceiling, otherwise there'd be a moratorium similar to what Lacey has had historically last, I think about 10 years or so ago, before they did some modifications to their rights. So that ceiling represents no more building permits to be issued that require water with them. So, right now we are sitting right about here with the total requests. If, there's a large user to come on in the future, that would account for another large chunk, about 3,200, 3,278 in terms of ERUs in the potential in the future. That would give us about 7,000 ERUs remaining to fulfill all of those requests, those that are currently requested and those that may be coming in the near future. If you look at the graphic on the right, right now this total amount is about 34,710. This total bar that you see over here. We have ERUs reserved, as you can see there, at 1,600. The future 3,278. We have two future applications, water right applications that are currently existing with the Department of Ecology. We commented last year at some point on one of those, the Southwest Wellfield application. That would need to be significantly modified to acquire the water right in that capacity. But we do have a placeholder, and that's the kind of the point here. What we're looking at is 19,435 ERUs could be generated from those water right applications if we were able to find a path forward to make those applications in whole. In addition, there's about another 4,700 water rights that can be acquired and that we are currently and actively pursuing to acquire additional water rights. If we are to be successful in these two realms here with the acquisitions and the applications, that would bring our total amount up to about 36,125, which would extend that graphic on the left, to provide additional headway for us, for water. So, I mean, as you can tell, one of the challenges for the Deschutes River or for our watershed is actually new water. Where do we find new water? There's not a lot of water rights for acquisition that we can apply to our watershed. Those kind of water rights come from agriculture. They come from subdivisions that might have been built historically in the area that might convert over. Although those don't bring a lot of new capacity, because generally those water rights have been prepared. For example, last year we acquired the Velcomen water right. The water rights that are associated with that development. But that development, the water right was to serve 40 some odd equivalent residential units. And so, we're not really gaining any capacity by buying those water rights, although we do gain the ability to continue to serve those developments. Councilmember Althauser.
So I just to make sure that I'm kind of understanding the different colors, and I'm sort of thinking of this as like obligated versus not obligated to break. So like orange is obligated.
Correct.
The ERUs that are reserved are obligated.
Correct.
Is the gray that's future, is that a future obligation or a future water right that we've reserved that's going to become blue, which I equate to unobligated?
Right. So really right now we stand at about 10,000 ERUs that are unobligated. So you see that the top gray and the top blue are unobligated water rights at this point.
Okay.
So yeah, those are just
gray is waiting to become blue once some more process happens. Gray is not projected to go away. Gray is projected to add to our balance of unobligated.
Correct. No, actually gray is currently, so everything above this green line you see right here,
yeah,
everything above that is currently unobligated. This is just to recognize what the impact would be if we had a significantly large user come online.
Okay, got it.
And
so the 7,000 that's blue is what would be unobligated if we had a big user come online. But we also have, so the water right acquisitions and applications, let's say we had someone build 7,000 housing units, or they use 7,000 ERUs. We have 24,000-ish ERUs kind of waiting in the wings that we could pursue if we needed to.
Correct.
Okay.
The easiest would be the first 4,700
right.
ERUs. So that would add to that portfolio. Correct.
Okay. Got it. Thanks.
Okay. You bet.
Dan, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So I know there's been mention that we might possibly be having a Coca-Cola bottling plant down here at the airport. And there's been discussions, maybe it might use 1 million gallons of water. So when we talk about them maybe using 1 million gallons of water, is that over a year, or what is the timeline? How much 1 million gallons is in reference to how much they need per year? And where is that water coming from?
Well, that water would come from the city of Tumwater, from our source of supply and from our distribution system. That use is forecasted at this point to use about 600,000 gallons a day at full operation. So they'd actually be ramping up to 600,000 gallons a day, but that would be their amount here. This gray chunk would represent a significant user, and so this is almost there to kind of demonstrate what a significant user would look like in that range. So this is so that we have basically the capacity to be able to serve a significant user such as Coke, and this is the impact that it would have. We would have about 7,000 remaining ERUs in our facility after that reservation was made.
Would there be any concern from the city if that did come into reality and they use that much water?
Well, as trying to demonstrate, we have the capacity to be able to do that. There is always, a need to manage our system for all of our customers. you know, whether it's from an infrastructure improvements or capacity improvements or conveyance improvements, treatment, you know, needs, you know, so, you know, as users come online, you know, regardless of who the users are, you know, we need to make, you know, we need to kind of, you know, keep up with our system and utilize, you know, utilize our funds to improve the system's best, to meet our system's best needs.
Thank you.
So this kind of, you know, this next slide kind of just shows you where we're at, you know, in the overall ability to meet our customers' demands. The bars you see down here represent conservative planning or conservative and a planning estimate, you know, for our uses. I like to live in the dotted lines just because that's kind of a worst case scenario, so to speak. However, our water use actually really kind of more reflects this solid gray line that you see on here. This is our average day demand. You know, we're about 2.5–3 million gallons today, which is pretty much right on track. If you look, you know, right here, this is kind of where we're at on an average day. And Carollo, who did this original and did their water system planning process for us, did a really good job of helping us narrow the planning field down a little bit. Historical water system plans overestimated future uses. And we wanted, you know, while that gives you kind of a better worst case scenario to plan for, because if you're planning for a higher increment and your reality is you're lower, then you're able to meet your needs in a better way. And so that's why I like to say I like to live on this gray line up here. But the reality is we are closer aligned in this gray area. And so you can see from an average day demand graph, kind of what our forecasted growth and our forecasted demands look like. We have this purple line, so to speak, you know, is our existing ability to pump. Okay, and that meets our demands on our average day. So that's your typical day in January or February or March, you know, not necessarily accounting for irrigation, which is, you know, probably the number one cause for the increases that you'll see on the next slide. But we're able to meet our demands all the way out through 2038 in our planning horizon. These two large bumps you see here, or here and here, that's where we actually input into the system two large users coming online. We don't know who they are, but we plan for 1 million gallon a day users within our water system planning process. So you can kind of see how that affects our demands on this curve here, and we're still able to meet those demands with our existing pumping capacity. Before I go on, Councilman Ralthauser.
I think you might have previewed this, like this might be on the next slide. But I guess my question is less about average day demand and more about peak, like in the summertime. Like if we have a significant user come online, you know, we have enough capacity for that. But I guess I'm curious, as opposed to average, if there's like median or another way of looking at, you know, that really hot day in July when everyone's watering their lawns, and that significant user is still taking 600K, whether that puts additional stress on our ability to meet the needs citywide. Because you know, Lacey does the water your plants every other day thing. I know that I hear regularly from people in the community that is something that they want to avoid at all costs. So I guess that's another question, is like to make sure that we have the need or the capacity to sort of meet the need regularly during the summertime.
So I'm glad you asked that. We'll just skip this slide because, as you can see here, we're going to really kind of go over some of the same improvements that you're seeing. And all these improvements are just increasing our capacity over time to be able to meet that need. If we were to say to get all of these done in the next 5 years, you know, our system's capacity is up here on a maximum day demand, but our demands are actually down here, or on an average day demand. So plenty of room there. So we'll just skip over to the maximum day demand. And what does that look like? You know, again, you know, here is kind of the planning level estimate. This is probably going to match our actual demands and our actual uses a lot closer than you see this aggressive conservative demand. But this is where I need to live because, you know, Councilman Ralthauser, as you acknowledge, we have, you know, there's a number of different variables during the summer that could happen. You know, we could lose a source. We could lose, you know, we could have, you know, everybody trying to irrigate at once. And, you know, what's our ability to be able to serve that? And this really, I mean, the issues in Lacey are more conveyance driven than production driven. This is really kind of looking at a production capacity standpoint. When we do water system modeling, those are also things that we look at and making sure that we can meet, peak day demands, we can meet fire flow, we can meet all sorts of different things throughout the year. And so that's a different level, that's a different type of planning that happens at the same time, but we will be continuing to look at that to make sure that we can meet all of those demands. We don't want to go to an alternative day irrigation schedule either. But what you can see here, is this is our existing ability to pump right here. And, we, by about 2028, when we forecast that first user to come online with this significant jump, we lose, we may be in a significant challenge to be able to meet those demands at that point by 2028. And so we have, a number of projects that we've outlined that are going to help us get there. We've recently incorporated the Lathrop water system area into the Tumwaters water system. Now we need to be able to exercise those water rights and activate those 300 gallons per minute. Last year, we purchased the golf course water rights. Now we need to activate those water rights and put them into our system. Those are going to bring us, up to this level. So just with those two projects alone, we're over 8,000 8,000 gallons per minute a day, which is going to help us meet those demands if you carry that out almost to the horizon with just those two issues alone. We also have the Brewery Wellfield project that we are, hopefully going to be starting next year or this year in earnest. That brings us over 10,000 gallons per minute per day, really helping us again to meet those maximum day demands. And if I'm living in this world up here, that's starting to make me feel comfortable with just those three projects. However, when you look at our true forecasted demands would be down here, giving us a lot more headway to be able to meet those demands out there. And then kind of the more nebulous projects, the more uncertain projects, the Future Source 2230, that was the water right associated with the Southwest Wellfield. Not quite sure we're going to be able to get there as it's currently written. So there's some modifications there. These are going to be our biggest challenges, and they're also going to be the ones that are going to take the longest time for us. However, with these three projects alone, we get to a place where we're meeting the planning curve of our demands, out through at least the planning horizon, when giving us some headway even on that planning horizon, for that number there. And if I did it right, yep, this is currently where we're at. We've had some system modifications to our system. And so, we're actually able to produce about 7 million gallons a day, which you can kind of see here would help us even meet that spike that we would see when that first significant user would come online. Forecasted there. So, from a capacity standpoint, we're doing fairly well. We can handle some significant users coming online. Can
I ask a question about the previous slide before you go on? So for improved ability to pump and improved redundancy, we did some work in 2020. I think that's what that first uptick is. But what does that look like for infrastructure in the future to make sure that we can get those dotted lines as opposed to the straight ones? Is that 12-inch water mains, or what physical structures or implements have to actually go in the ground for us to achieve the dotted lines as opposed to the straight ones?
And yes, I'm just going to say yes. That is part of the planning process when we say for the Brewery Wellfield that we're going to be completing, we're going to be pulling 2,100 gallons a minute out of the ground. We need the infrastructure to be able to push that through the neighborhoods, to get that into our main distribution lines. We have 24-inch mains throughout the city. We can go larger as we need to. And that's all part of that water system planning process where we're looking at where we might have deficient flows, we might have lower pressures, might have greater demands in the future. And so as we know that those types of things are coming online, we run our water system models to determine what kind of infrastructure improvements we need. And that could be booster stations. That could be, where we have pressure reducing, we have, too high a pressure if it's a property close to the well field and, it's coming out at a high pressure because we need to get that out to the farthest sense of our system. We'll be doing things like that. We also have, for example, the Southeast Reservoir project that's kicking off, and transportation engineering is kind of leading that effort for us now. That's going to help stabilize, some of those demand needs as well too. So, there are, so the answer is yes, we have infrastructure improvements, we'll identify those as we do our water system modeling to make sure that we're meeting, meeting regulatory needs, meeting customer needs, and, not, over pressurizing the system in areas.
Okay, thank you.
So this gets to your question, Councilmember Alhauser, about what does summer peak flows actually look like? So we saw the perspective of, what does forecasted demands look like? This is last summer. And so you can see how close all the blue bars represent daily production. Early part of June, we're kind of down still around that average day demands, 2.5, 3 million gallons a day, kind of, floating through here. And then as irrigation systems start coming online, as you can see, this red bar is temperature, the temperature start increasing. You can kind of see how the water needs flow. And you see, even though temperatures are dropping in these areas, these are probably results of irrigation system programming, where they're just kind of set for schedules and they just kind of run because we have kind of a fairly consistent, operational need up here. So when I was talking about too, we need to plan for that higher bar because any number of things can happen. And every summer, I know our operations manager is lost all of his fingernails as he's watching these charts go by. We lost well 17. One of our newer wells had an electrical failure, and we lost the pump in there, and so it had to be replaced. And so you can see how that drops our capacity. These 3 bars represent our peak possible production capacity. And basically the top bars, the top red bar that's where we're at. We can't possibly produce any more than that. We don't want to be at that red bar because if we're producing, close by that red bar, that's where we're going to start having to implement some more water conservation measures, or water shortage response plan measures that we have outlined in our plan. Luckily, for the last, from all of my experience, except for I think maybe one summer where we had a declared drought, we were able to operate below the green line, which is stage 2, and we call voluntary. We ask folks to, conserve water voluntarily, don't water if you don't have to, we put out conservation messages. If we get over that green bar for any sustained period of time, we can start looking at the school district, at City of Tumwater public facilities. Hey, can we pull back on irrigation? Do we need to irrigate right of way? Are there other ways we can start conserving water? Because we want to make sure that the potable system is available for the most essential needs, the potable needs, drinking water, lifeline type situations, medical facilities that they have access to water, certainly lawn watering, fountain, filling, those kinds of things become less essential in those critical periods. So, even with the loss of the well, we were still able to operate below that band. And we monitor this on a daily basis, as you can see, every year. And so that we can have this conversation almost in real time, like, hey, what are we seeing with our system? What's happening out there? What's the demands look like? So this is just also one to also demonstrate that, our current possible production is over 7 million gallons a day currently with all wells operational. This only really goes from June to end of September. Well 17 is back online, so our peak possible production is back above 7 million gallons a day. So we have a couple of milestones in front of us. I've started conversations with Carollo engineers that have helped us with a lot of this planning work. I'm going to have them work with us on developing kind of a scope and do some preliminary planning as we bring on the Water Resources Program Manager, whose #1 focus is going to be on this source development work. There's lots of stuff, for a program manager to do, but this is probably the most important thing that we need support on currently. And so they'll work with Carollo to start, ticking off some of that low-hanging fruit, as I was mentioning there, the integrating the Lathrop water rights, the golf course water rights. There's a reliability for well 15 as one of our largest producers, adding some backup power to that to make sure that well continues to operate. Consider that the low-hanging fruit. As I mentioned back on that average day demand, we just get those few things done, and we're in fairly good shape, and so we can work, in earnest on some of those more difficult pieces, which is going to be those water right applications. And water right applications do not occur quickly. For example, both of these applications, I think one was submitted in 2002, the other one was submitted in 1999. So not only do they take up a lot of staff time, they're intensive and they are expensive to evaluate because, I think we spent $250 some $1,000, $225,000 on developing a mitigation plan for the Southwest well field, where, at the end of the day, it turned out that, there's really nothing we can do there. So, I mean, all of this adds to the total cost of water. You have to do the engineering work, you have to do the mitigation analysis, you have to do, all of the planning, pre-planning work to determine, where water can be developed, how it can be developed. If you can buy water rights are not getting any less expensive. They just go up in cost every year. So a lot of this is just really adding to the overall cost of water, which historically is fairly cheap, for customers in our area. And with water treatment costs needing to go up as well, the overall cost of water is continuing to increase, and this will take time. So, buckle up, we're going to be on this ride for a little while. And, I'm really looking forward to bringing on a program manager, hopefully sooner this year. First quarter is my goal. Not sure if we're going to be able to get there. We're going to see what the pool looks like out there. Regardless, I will continue the conversation with Carollo. And when we bring on a program manager, we'll be able to hand the project off to them. But we're in that place today. We need to get this conversation going. So I'm looking forward to that. And I actually have a call with them next week to do some of the preliminary kind of scope development work with them. And I think that was the last slide I had for you. So if there are any other questions, I can stop sharing or go back and visit a slide if you'd like.
Okay, it looks like Charlie unmuted. Charlie, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Thank you so much. So my concern, Dan, is the chart goes up to 2038. And of course, that's only 15 years from now. And it's not a very long time, like you implied. And there's a lot of struggle to find out how we get more resources for water. And when I came in office, John Doan always mentioned we had to think 7 generations from now. And it appears we haven't gotten to that point as far as the aspect of attaining water rights. So I am concerned about that. Also, I noticed in your presentation, we really didn't mention, or you didn't really mention anything about conservation and how that would affect the usage of water in our community.
So water conservation, if you remember those two lines, you have that dotted line and you have that planning line. Conservation measures are included in that planning line. So, we have a conservation program today. We will be looking at revising our conservation plan this year as well. That'll be an effort that'll be led up by Carrie. And as we develop new incentives, as we kind of think about different programs, LOT is getting out of the conservation business, and so, we are going to have to radically revise what our conservation program looks like. Maybe not radically, but we'll have to take another look at it and revise what our programs are that are out there. And we want to maintain that planning level. That dotted line, that represents a level without any water conservation. So if we're not doing any kind of water conservation activities out there, we're not evaluating landscape irrigation practices, requirements along those lines. I mean, one requirement right now, our development code requires housing developments to go in with sprinkler systems, irrigation systems. That's not necessarily, that's a planning decision that doesn't necessarily support the water system. And so we need to be able to kind of balance that. And I know from a sustainability standpoint, those kinds of practices are being evaluated as well. So yes, conservation is programmed into those lines, those forecasted planning lines that you're seeing in there. Without it, that's where we're living in that dotted level, dotted line.
Thank you, Dan.
What do you mean LOT's getting out of the conservation thing? Like the high pressure faucet adapter thing? They're not going to do programs like that anymore?
No, because LOT's primary motivation for doing water conservation was preserving capacity within their plants. They have significant capacity now within their plants to be able to treat forecasted future growth, and reclaimed water is really a higher priority for them to prepare. And it actually provides a greater impact for them than conservation. And so those types of adapters, which you're talking about there, the faucet adapters and whatnot, those are things that very easily the water utilities can't provide, and that provides us the benefit. And so, we've historically provided those to our non-LOT customers, and so now we just expand that program, and we continue that program along the way for our water system customers in and of themselves. And so that's, so Lot is phasing out of that conservation program. They also had a water smart technology program. They helped replace toilets back in the early 2000s. I think there were gobs of toilets given out across the region. And so what Lot's also looking at, some of that low hanging fruit that helps preserve capacity for them has been really either really well accepted by the community, and so there's not really a lot of additional facilities to retrofit, so to speak, or it's been addressed by code. So the plumbing codes that's been coming out back in 98, again in 2006, I want to say, some of those plumbing code revisions have also negated the need for Lot to push further for indoor conservation. And where we're seeing our greatest need, as we kind of demonstrated on that peak use chart, is we're really seeing the greatest need in the irrigation or the outdoor water use arena. And so that's where we need to kind of look at programs, and that wouldn't be Lot's that wouldn't be part of Lot's responsibility regardless, because they're looking at indoor conservation and ways to preserve there. And so again, a lot of the indoor stuff has been addressed. We're really looking at the next big measure as the outdoor conservation pieces.
Which would be, that's where the city programs pick up the slack, where
Correct.
rebates for smart timers or things like that.
Exactly.
Okay. Thanks.
So following up, will we be picking up then, because I know you say that a lot of the interior things have already been addressed, but will we still be offering the incentives for the low flow toilets and the washers, or will the jurisdictions have to pick that program up if they decide to continue? Is that where we are with that, is if Lot doesn't pick it up?
Yes. So Energy Star, the EPA, they currently have rebate systems, I believe, as well, that we try and match. And so, as we go to revamp our conservation program and look at the incentives, we'll look at cost effectiveness of doing that. Because again, a lot of the technology that's out there today, a lot of the washing machines, they're really, using dishwashers, they're using a lot less water than they have historically, and so there might not really be much value in the city in offering $100 rebate on a water machine that's really efficient. And the costs, for these technologies have come better in line, where an efficient water machine is not hundreds of dollars more than a standard water machine, washing machine that you can get. The costs have balanced in, to a point where, you're kind of seeing that, in the fluctuation of costs, around for a water efficient machine, so, we would look at the cost effectiveness of providing those additional rebates. And if it makes sense, then absolutely. Maybe it's only on a select few technologies that we would provide that for. But yeah, no, we're not, just because we know a lot of the indoor water uses have been saturated, and technology and regulation have addressed a lot of that. We're not going to, forego with those programs or unless it just doesn't make sense from a cost-effective standpoint.
Thank you. So are we going to be going to those the signs that people put in their yards that "Shh, my lawn is sleeping"? So do we encourage people not to water?
There's a lot of conversation around that. I have, we've been putting, your lawn's not dormant, or your lawn's not dead and dormant kind of messages out to the public, probably for the last 15-20 years. And you can drive around Tumwater, on a hot summer day, and you can see there's a lot of lawns that, folks have heard that messaging and adhere to it. So, I don't know if there's a huge need for that out there. We will continue with that messaging. But I know there are programs out there, and Carrie's been kind of researching a program out of Spokane where, so I think it's called Go for the Gold or something like that. Highlighting that a gold lawn is a good lawn, kind of a thing too. So, that conversation is still out there. So maybe we'll see.
Okay. All right. Well, very good. Do we have any other questions then for Dan today? All right. Okay. Well, thank you. That was really great. I really appreciate that very up-to-date information on our water, the amount of water this Tumwater is able to provide. So, and then how we're going to be looking to take the steps in the future to be able to improve our production. So, all right. Well, do we have any other additional items that we need to discuss here? All right. Okay. Well, I thank everyone for your presentations today. And so with that, I will call the Thursday, January 5th, 2023 Public Works meeting adjourned. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good day.